listening to the Designing and Executing Channel Marketing Campaigns for SMB Partners. I'd like first to introduce myself. I'm Will Gibney, the Vice President of Sales and Marketing here at eCoast, and we are a demand generation vendor that's specialized in the design and execution of prepackaged, scalable marketing campaigns to the channel. And on a monthly basis, we work with over 200 channel partners in executing campaigns. And now I'd like to introduce Laz Gonzales with Sirius Decisions. Sirius is a company that's known as the world's leading source for B2B sales and marketing best practice research and data. Welcome, Laz.
Welcome, Will. Thanks for having me on.
So before we jump right into it, this webinar actually was due to the high demand for the re-recording. We are recording this today of a webinar that was hosted on February 16th. And the topics that we're going to review today are the go-to-market and how do we create SMB demand within the SMB for the within going through the channel. We're also going to talk about how leading vendors set up and manage channel marketing programs. What partners want in a vendor-focused campaign, and also the critical factors in building a partner marketing portal that gets utilized and can track the results. We're also going to talk about what type of campaigns that are most effective in generating pipeline, and then also we're going to end with how to track and how to estimate pipeline. So Laz, as we've had a lot of interest in this webinar and this topic, what are the main drivers today that you're seeing that are causing this interest?
Well, I'll tell you what, Will, there's no hiding behind the numbers. When we look at organizations, how they spend their channel marketing dollars, we see a couple of key deployment areas. Supplier to partner, and that is the idea that the supplier is communicating and having a dialogue with the partner to raise adoption, to raise awareness. And then partner to customer, and a lot of you have seen that as campaigns in a box, and where the supplier creates a solution for a marketing campaign and offers that to the partner who customizes it and delivers it to their customer. When we look at these two deployment options and we gauge how companies invest in either one, we see that size matters. So depending on the size of the company, they will be spending differently in each one of these areas. For example, a company between $100 million to $1 billion, they might be spending a lot more on supplier to partner because they're trying to raise awareness. However, you can see they still spend a third of that on partner to customer driving campaigns. As these companies grow in size, and if you take a look at that $5 billion to $10 billion range, we can see a pretty good representation of what we like to term a best-in-class split. So $5 billion to $10 billion, approximately one-third of their investment is in supplier to partner, basically describing what is coming down the pike, what programs you can participate in, what are the new product launches, etc. And partner to customer takes about the lion's share of that, over 50%. And that's really where we want to focus on, Will. We want to take a look at that spend of over 50% and where it's actually going so that we can look at some of the best practices that are out there right now. So let's go take a look at some best practices behind partner to customer spend. And in this case, what we want to try and do is go right over here, and let's go to the next slide. And the next slide here, we'll be talking about marketing through the partners. Now, marketing through the partners really implies that the supplier needs to be filling some gaps in partner demand. Basically, the larger the partner population, the greater need to leverage digital tools and third parties to scale to meet the requirements of demand. What we're looking at here is a common representation of a partner program with a supplier who has over 1,000 partners. They're developing a one-to-many type solution around high-touch programs that the partner can use, incentives to fund. So we see that split again is about 35 to 54%. On the left-hand side, we see a tool that's commonly used with two-tier partnerships, distributors and sub-resellers, where they've actually created some branded rich media widgets that basically takes the top 10 things that are important to that partner and puts them on a page that they could load onto their website. And then behind it has all the presentations and product manager testimonials and kinds of things that the supplier wishes the partner can do for themselves but can't. So filling those gaps by offering them these tools becomes really important. On the right-hand side, we'll call out a ready-to-go marketing program that has been delivered by Microsoft. And we'd like to draw attention to that. In fact, let's go to the next slide and take a look at that a little bit closer. In this particular situation, what we're seeing is a program to help partners boost their sales. Now again, our survey data indicates that 35 to 54 of channel marketing budgets are being invested in these types of programs and the tools and infrastructure that support them. So what we're really hoping is that partners can take these programs and drive leads for themselves. But there's a problem with this model, and the problem really has to do with the way that these tools are delivered to the channel. Let's take a look at the traditional approach to partner marketing. Now, in the traditional approach, we see a lot of ingredients being offered up to the partner. Now, equate this to going to a restaurant, for example, and sitting down at a table, and the waiter comes over and says, "What would you like to eat?" Well, you look at the menu, and you order something. And then what we find is whatever you order gets delivered to you in a box in the form of ingredients, and it's left up to you to cook the rest. Well, that's what it feels like when a supplier offers them to create a marketing program. The first understanding is that the partner doesn't have the wherewithal to drive that program because of the marketing skills that they have on board. And the second one, and if we build this out, we'll see that the partner requires some assistance in driving last mile execution. So let's stop taking this recipe-based approach and recognize that we need to have a hand in helping the partners. Otherwise, we're going to hear common feedback. Let's take a look at that common feedback that we hear from sales and marketing. So let's go quickly to the next slide where we'll see now what the issues are between sales and marketing in terms of the feedback they get. Well, we hear sales always saying, hey, the programs that you're delivering to me don't reflect the way that we sell. We might be selling a bundled solution or a service-based offering, and your product is just a piece of that. Also, I've heard a lot of partners say to me, the suppliers put so many conditions, so many strings around the MDF dollars that, you know what, I'd just rather let them keep their money and I'll market for myself. And then we also hear that there's no way to really customize the assets in a way that really reflects the way the buyer purchases and that journey that he follows. We also hear that the channel lacks the know-how to deliver the resources on the programs. Yet on the marketing side, they've got some legitimate gripes themselves. First of all, there's too much focus on pre-execution process, for example, the MDF process. It's almost like we create workflows and processes to have partners who have very little skills in the marketing side tell us how they want to use the supplier's money. Well, that's kind of putting the cart in front of the horse. Also, they complain that the collateral is not used or misused. Frankly, in the channel today, B2B suppliers inform us that the average flow in the channel for adoption of any one of these content is about 25%. So with that kind of adoption, it's no wonder that we hear marketing say, isn't there a better way of doing this? And then finally, after all this is done and said, we find that the marketers are chasing down ROI because they did not build it into the program so that they could see what expectations they could meet with the programs. So let's take a look at this continuum that I'm kind of looking at here and saying we've got to fix. The continuum starts with the partner proposing. He might have a great idea on how, create new opportunities. Will you fund it? The vendor approves and says, well, how much revenue have you earned and what have you done in the past? Well, think about that. Aren't we really saying that we're going to reward them after they cross the finish line, even though they're saying they've got an idea to seed and develop the market? That's where this doesn't make sense. Then the program is developed and largely developed by the vendor who passes it on to the partner for execution. The partner then executes but can't do so alone, so he's going to require field marketing help, and before you know it, the vendor staff is all on site, and that whole idea of selling through the channel to lower your cost of sales kind of flies out the window. Then finally, we have this black hole where we really don't know what the performance of the campaign was and what should be done about it. So this points to some very serious issues in terms of how partners apply for the funds, use them, and then how we measure their performance. Really, the idea is we have to look at this constituent and say, what is the makeup of the typical SMB partner, and understand where we need to fill these gaps. So, for example, we have to realize that a lot of these organizations sell into specific markets. Some of them are educational focused, some of them are healthcare, manufacturing. They tend to know those territories very well. They also combine products and services to add value to existing supplier products. So it's not just one solution, it's typically a bundled solution represented by many suppliers. Although they do have strong technical, let's call it integration background, where they become experts at dealing with disparate systems. Now, conversely, we have to recognize that these partners who are out there with these different systems, they're maintaining 5 to 6 general supplier relationships and 2 to 3 key ones. So really the challenge for organizations is to find themselves in that sweet spot where they can be one of those 2 or 3 key vendors that they're working with. And as I mentioned before, the reality is that there's minimal marketing expertise on staff to help. So we need to do something to fill that gap in marketing demand that that partner can generate. And finally, in some cases, they use the distributor to help recruit the partner or recruit the customer. So the distributor plays a role in this, and we really have to start thinking about how this works. Now, I realize that I've shared with you a lot of inherent difficulties in generating demand through the channel using MDF performance-based programs. And let's not just refrain from not generating demand. That's not a good thing. But what I'll do is, let's ask ourselves, what are channel technology companies doing today? How is it working best? In order to answer that question, let's ask Will Gibney to come back online and explain to us some real-world examples of how organizations are building out these programs and what are some of the best practice characteristics within each. Go ahead, Will. Why don't you take it over from here?
Sure. Thanks, Laz. Thanks for that insight, and I think it's timely insight. And what are these guys doing today? And this approach that they've had, is this build it and it will come approach, and that approach, really, hasn't worked as well. If we go back 3 or 4 years and really, what were they doing 3 or 4 years ago? And I think you always learn from what you've done in the past. And what they were doing in the past is they were essentially these manufacturers were investing in these collateral builder tools, these co-branded tools that pulled out direct mail and emails, and that was really the trend. And what they found was it was very expensive. It was a standalone tool, and it wasn't tied to any MDF, and it was a laborious process to use for the average partner. To Laz's point about the profile partner, especially an SMB type partner, they rarely had marketing. So what happened was when they were using these tools, they didn't send the marketing person to this tool. No one actually went to this tool. And the funny thing is the only people who actually used this tool in one case became eCoast as a vendor. We were the ones actually using the tool on behalf of the partner to execute a package campaign. And we would take the direct mail, and then instead of, because it wasn't set up, the MDF, we would actually use that, and we would be the ones using it. So the manufacturers started to get smart, a lot of them, and they realized we need to combine MDF, the collateral tools, and the telemarketing into a robust portal. So that's what they started doing. But what happened was they started to build out these very elaborate portals. And as they built out the elaborate portals, the partners became frustrated in using them. There was too many choices. So the field marketing, to Laz's point, and also the channel account managers started to actually go in and order the campaigns for the partners. And then the partners would, as you could imagine, would get these campaigns, and they would be clueless into what the campaign was about. So that process didn't work really either. So what we've actually seen that works is to build an easy-to-use tool that gives them choices, but limited choices. It's clear, it's simple, and also the MDF is attached to it, and the process doesn't change. It doesn't get updated every month or two where it completely becomes a new process for them to use. So that's the way that we've seen where it starts to work for manufacturers. But you got to remember, at the same time, the partner doesn't care about all these portals and all these choices. Really, what they care about is they want leads. And not only do they want leads and they want new customers, but they want leads that are going to close. They do not want leads that they're going to have to nurture. Because if you remember, the average partner did not have marketing to nurture opportunities. Marketing automation is a foreign country to them. They have no idea what marketing automation is. Lead nurturing, they don't have an idea what lead nurturing is. So when you're designing these campaigns and these packages, they're not looking for 25 prospects in many cases. Instead, they're looking for 5 sales-ready, qualified opportunities that would like to meet with them. It is definitely a quality over quantity with the average SMB partner. That's what they want. So you need to be cognizant of this when you're designing these types of campaigns within these portals. So really, this kind of leads us into, what are the best approaches today that channel partners are using to generate revenue, generate demand, and also, have an ability to measure these activities. So it really does depend. There's a few key factors that I feel, about 4 of them, that influence the demand generation campaign, designing it for channel partners, especially in the SMB marketplace. Number 1, if your average deal size is only $5,000, it probably doesn't make sense to do, say, an appointment setting campaign where you're paying $750 per appointment. There is no return on investment on that. Where it starts to make sense in an appointment setting campaign like that is on a UC solution or a virtualization solution, where you're spending an upwards of, $15K plus on an average deal size. The second factor is the partner size. You don't want a large partner to engage in a small campaign. This does not make them happy because it doesn't make sense to a large partner to do a 2-appointment play campaign if that's going to be the result of it, because these guys are set up to do high volume. They're not going to fit in this type of that type of campaign. Also, the amount of MDF is probably the biggest factor in designing your campaigns. If you give that partner, say, $2,000 in MDF, you probably want to have campaigns and plays, if you will, that are right around that $2,000 mark. You don't want to do campaigns that are 5K or 10K because really, at a minimum, they want to have 50% funding, I would say at a minimum. More and more, the trend that we see today is 100% funded campaigns for SMB partners that probably don't really believe in marketing yet. So to get them to participate, really, it's 100% funding in many cases. And then the last thing in how to design these campaigns and plays that you got to be aware of is how many partners do you want to participate in this type of campaign. Because if you want to really scale this to say, 200 partners, you're going to want to do smaller campaigns versus larger engagements, maybe to your top, 20% of your partners. So that's how to scale. Now, what really, what are the mix? What are the, if you will, the fishing lures in your tackle box that, that you want to use today, and and you don't want to overwhelm them with choices, and keeping that in mind. So what we've seen is there is a trend away from lead generation, and it's more toward a combination of online and offline marketing activities that we've seen to be successful. You need to remember, too, you need to play to the partner's strengths. I just had one partner the other day, talk to me about on the phone, and he said, Will, we're not good at getting the doors open for these companies, but once we actually get in the door and we start talking to people, we close half the deals we get into. And I thought that was very, I hear it all the time, actually, from partners, because we know, they are good at solving problems and building relationships. And the best way to solve problems, build relationships, become a trusted advisor is with face-to-face. And that's where I think appointment setting comes in. It's a face-to-face appointment where you're setting up an appointment on behalf of that partner and doing that work for them and getting them in the door and positioning them to do what they do best. So what's the other thing you need to be aware of is, digital marketing and social media. Those things are becoming more and more prevalent. Partners are starting to adopt them. And the campaigns that we see coming out now, they're starting to be more measurable. So if you can measure them, people and manufacturers are more willing to invest in them. And then from a sales enablement standpoint, how do you scale these manufacturers? What if you want to do a campaign where actually the partners are doing the calling? And we're going to show you some examples next of some actual plays that we execute today that we feel are great examples of what to do. And here's that one that's very easy to implement, or an example of an appointment setting campaign. The results are clearly focused on what they're going to get. It doesn't require a lot of partner upfront marketing investment where they're doing any co-branding of any collateral, and they like it because it's got skin in the game to the partner. They know they're guaranteed to get appointments and get in the door. And manufacturers like it because it's highly measurable and they can understand what happened, where it is, and track the pipeline as well. In many cases in these, we see 50% to 100% funded as well as a side note. And you can see the 2-appointment package is very popular, especially within the SMB community, where smaller partners can handle 2 appointments. In some cases, for example, they can't handle an 8-appointment campaign. The other approach that I wanted to touch on is this teach them the fish approach. So instead of actually doing the appointment setting for them, what this approach is, it actually teaches them to do it themselves. And it helps them learn how to prospect. And this is especially important if they have a sales team. Maybe they hired 2 or 3 people, and it's a junior sales team, and it can work really well in that type of arrangement. The one thing with this approach is a sales enablement approach. We've created packages that are specifically, we call them call blitzes, and what this is, it sets up the scenario where as the vendor, we set up the partner to conduct the prospecting themselves. So we provide them with a list, we provide them with a script, we may do an email blast, we give them access and training to a call blitz portal, and then in many cases we see the manufacturer channel account manager work with that partner and jointly do the call blitz together. So they're building more relationship there, you have that field engagement, and it gets the the entire team focused on on prospecting. Another way to design a play or a campaign, this one is for a Cisco focused campaign. It was on a promotion calling Building Your Core. So essentially you can take their promotion, their collateral, such as an email and landing page, and co-brand it, and then you build upon it. So this is where that offline and online multiple touch scenario comes into play, where we're still providing them with appointments, but at the same time we're doing a multiple touch point using offline media, making the calls, and online media, with the email and landing page. And the last thing I'll touch on is this e-marketing, or this digital marketing, and there is actually on this, there's a few things such as marketing services, where more and more partners, they realize they need help with marketing as they start to realize, oh, I need a case study. So first I'll do that. And then when they start to build this content out, they start looking at other things. All right, how are we going to start promoting this content? One of the best ways to promote the content is through digital media. Well, one being maybe it's search engine optimization. Google AdWords is one that we've seen that type of package play become very popular because it is trackable. The results, you can track them as well, and the partner gets them. And so here's an actual example of a Google AdWords play that we create and we use for partners today, where we set them up, we do the Google AdWords, the keyword research, we build a landing page for them, and then we turn it on and we get them X amount of leads that come in through the Google AdWords campaign, and then we can track it throughout. So it's interesting, you can create all these great campaigns and and communicate this out to the partners, but really the question becomes, Laz, when the rubber hits the road, how do you deliver this, and then when do you get them, and how do you engage with these partners to actually take it, follow through, and make sure that some of the stuff is turning into actual revenue.
Great question, Will. The way that you described that before, teaching the partners to fish, I think it's up to every supplier to really become a good fishing boat captain and make sure that in a prescriptive way they're helping that partner with all these that they need to effectively drive demand. So I think it's a great example, and it just talks to us about what else should go in that charter boat of opportunities that the partner is on board for. Well, one of the things that we really look at is that this is a continuous process. It's really not something that we want partners to kind of just do once and forget about. As a result of this, we've developed the Sirius Decisions adoption model, which talks about the several stages that companies really need to address when they're launching products, both direct and in the channel. They include launching, promotion, education, engagement. And then in the channel, we also know that there's an evergreen turnover of partners, whether new partners are coming on board or partners are being dropped from the program. Well, what happens is that most organizations, as they launch new products, they get to the promotional stage and then they pass the assets out to either the sales function or their partners and say, go sell. And our message to you is don't stop there. Basically, there are going to be some very prescriptive actions you need to take to allow partners to move from that promotion stage to the education stage. So you might be offering them case studies, webinars, sales meetings to promote the new products. And then on the channel side, you might be offering some more, such as, let's see if we can build the slide out for a second. And in the channel, we could be sending communities, partner portals, viral videos, again, to raise awareness and drive promotion. Now, as they move over to education, we might need to change those tactics from case studies to playbooks to really educate the partner on how to address the needs of the customer during, for example, an integrated campaign. And also workshops, sales trainings, and certification programs. Let's stop there for a second, because if we think about that, in order to move the customer from the education stage to the engagement stage, those tactics need to be very compelling for them. And our research indicates that that is the time when they're going through certification training that you really want to make the offer for them to participate in your programs. In fact, they'll be 3 times more likely to engage with you at that time than if you were to do it some other time in the future when you're talking to the partner. Well, having said that, that's an easy way to pop up a message and say to the partner, here, now that you've gotten your certification, let's see what's on board in terms of programs that you could run. And now by simply moving them over, you can show them what that pop-up window would look like or what the opportunity would be for them to use this knowledge that they've just acquired to go ahead and move forward. So again, this is a continuous model, and as our friend on the slide starts moving from education to engagement, we realize that new partners are coming on board and old partners are dropping off. So what we want to make sure is that we have an opportunity to know that this is a continuous cycle, not just a one and done. And for every product launch that we move in the channel, we can go ahead and start thinking about this continuous adoption process that we need to kind of address. And so as our friends on the screen fly off and go into channel nowhere land, because as we all know, some partners stick around and some of them become productive, we look at what it is that drives these partners to actually engage. And one of the things that I'm a really big fan of is the way that companies like eCoast are creating these prescriptive MDF-funded channel plays. And I think this is really important. Even though I do talk to a lot of companies and say, oh, well, we're doing something like that, are you really doing it this way? In fact, let me go into the details here, because as we all know, the devil's in the details, and we might as well uncover those details to talk about what is different and unique about these programs. So the first thing that's important about them is the way that the plays are developed. Marketing has several roles in the channel: seeding, generating demand, growing new business, addressing existing customers, and growing share of wallet. We should create different types of programs out there that address these different roles of marketing, whether they're Google AdWords, appointment setting, multi-touch emails, or even database building type activities. Now, the second element that's also really important here is, as Will mentioned, is the bolted on MDF. So rather than look at that process where the partner petitions, the vendor approves, and then we let them use the MDF, what we're trying to do here is change that model. And by attaching monetary value or points-based value to each one of these plays, the partner now knows that there's some intrinsic value to this thing that you're offering them. Next, let them know how much time this is going to take. In many cases, partners tend to think of marketing as a one-and-done activity. Let them know that if we're doing a 4-appointment campaign, they should expect 30 business days. And within those 30 business days, the number of calls will be going back and forth between the telefunction, the partner themselves, and the customer themselves. So setting expectation on durations is huge. Next thing is let them know what the ingredients are. Don't cook it for them, but let them know that there's going to be a data list, there might be appointment setting, then someone will call the customer and do appointment confirmation. There might be a post-meeting debrief either to the customer or to the partner, and some biweekly reporting. That biweekly reporting is important because you want to set the expectations that you'll be expecting performance reports from the partner as to how well these meetings went. Then finally, one of the things that you could also build into these programs is the ROI and the results. So again, these performance-based play, with the operative word being performance, really drive results in ROI, and having them within the play itself so that the different partners can see, hey, what's expected, what are the ingredients, what are the components, how long is this going to last, and how much is it going to cost. These performance-based plays, after all, should have some kind of level of what you'll be getting in return. So, well, this is just an idea that really I've been observing a lot of the work that you guys have been doing here, but breaking this down into these very discrete programs that really take the partner by the hand and walk them through the process of generating demand. I think this is a real winning formula you guys are onto, and why I'm willing to talk about it like this. So let's ask Will. Will, what do those partners really want?
Yeah, no, thanks, Laz. That is that's the $1,000,000 question when you get down to it, because you can have the greatest design in the world, but these partners at the end of the day, they all want the Glengarry leads that are ready to close, and you need to be aware of that. And I think a lot of you guys are. A lot of times the reality though is different. So by putting those results into place and setting those and managing those expectations, it's very important. Because the last thing you want to do, just like us, you don't want the partner to go in having all these expectations of how this is going to be the greatest thing ever, and then at the end be disappointed in it. So you want to manage their expectations. The other challenge that becomes when you start doing these types of activities is that they've all participated in these types of engagements before, and in the past they've had bad experiences. So you need to be aware of this when you're working with a vendor, when you're designing these campaigns. If you don't have those results clearly identified, the partners are going to start to question it. They're going to start to get negative, and that's the last thing you want them to do, because we realize when you're managing these expectations, the attitude that the partner has going into these campaigns is very important. In many cases we've seen where they'll just say, oh yeah, we're going to do this because the manufacturer wants us to, but they're not really engaged in the campaign, and then we realize they didn't even attend the appointment, and so there becomes that where you need to be aware of that and do whatever you can to manage the expectations of, hey, this is going to be a good experience for you, and we're going to do whatever it takes to make this a positive experience for you. And occasionally, though, a lot of this is sales. You're not always going to get, the dozen eggs that aren't cracked. You may get one in there out of 10, and let's keep it. But let's try to have a consistent performance. So when designing these things, to anticipate this, they want results-oriented. And we know manufacturers want that too. They want to have these plays and these campaigns, whether they're prescriptive or not, they want to be able to attach results to them. But in some cases, you do need to step back and realize the bigger picture is, if we get them appointments, it's going to work. If we do maybe a less appointment-setting campaign and maybe more of a search engine optimization, it's going to build up some trust. It's going to build up that relationship. And in the big picture, it's going to pay off. Even on an appointment, they may just be starting to build a relationship up, and they may not close a $100K deal, but it may take some time. And by what's that lifetime value to that customer? That's both worth to the manufacturer, and also worth to the to the partner. It's probably a lot more than that one-time deal that they close. So you do all this stuff, you get the partner in there, and then you execute the play, but really it's not over at that point. Everyone still wants to track it. They want the metrics. Laz, what do you see today that these manufacturers are doing in the best in class, as you say, to determine a ROI on their marketing spend?
Well, Again, a great question there, Will. It sounds like, we're trying to solve a lot of problems here, but one of the issues that we always get asked about is metrics and tracking. And so how do you measure performance? And there's not one marketing organization that we talk to that isn't concerned with either what marketing is sourcing to pipeline or what they're influencing to pipeline. So those become two key metrics. And let me just describe the differences here. Marketing source, obviously, is that as a result of a direct marketing effort, pipeline is being sourced with new opportunities. So that could be that someone actually signed up for something, or made a response, the opportunity was qualified, and before you know it, someone knocked on their door, and again, they purchased or closed a deal with sales. That's marketing source. Marketing influence is a little less direct in cases where you might have a multi-touch integrated campaign, and now we want to see marketing as a resource center for the customer as they advance through their journey to learn more about the products and to buy them. And so marketing influence is saying that marketing is playing a role in influencing the partner by offering them the tools that they need to move from stage to stage as they loosen the status quo, they commit to changes, and they ponder new options that they have with the product set. So marketing influence, again, is suspect touches and prospect touches during that course of time. Now, investment to pipeline really says, of the marketing dollars that I spend, how much of it actually goes to pipeline. And just by the way, going back to marketing source and marketing influence, the range is there, 10 to 50% marketing source, 30 to 82% marketing influence. You can see influence can have a greater weight, as there are many ways that marketing can influence. Now, investment to pipeline pretty much means that what is the investment that I'm gaining? What's the incremental investment gains in the average cost of demand creation of the sales pipeline? So basically, you can see there's a 1 to 4% uplift based on this investment to pipe. And then finally, investment to revenue is really saying that for every dollar I spend in marketing, what am I going to receive in terms of opportunities, in terms of revenue? And there it has a broad range, but $5 to $20 plus for every dollar invested in marketing. Now, this is far below best practices. So if you think about this, investment to revenue is saying that for every $1 of marketing I put in a program like the ones that Will is describing, I'm going to see some return on this. But I think at this point it's interesting to go back to Will. And Will, why don't you show us what some of these benchmarks actually look like so we could put them in comparison to these numbers?
Yeah. Thanks, Laz, for sharing that. And I think we have this actual ROI calculation on a existing campaign that we're doing today, and you can see those numbers, the numbers that you're referring to, especially the marketing to pipeline ratio. Those are the numbers that we see today. More and more of our clients are looking for, and it's always a challenge, especially if you're in the SMB marketplace, because the deal size is is a little bit smaller, so it does become a little bit more difficult. What you're looking at right here, this is an active campaign that we did the spend on, and we took the marketing spend of about $68,800, and that's basically the 81 appointments. That's what it costs on those 81 appointments. And then you can see the pipeline generated to date was $2.7 million. Now, let me say something about that $2.7 million. That is based not on partner-reported pipeline. What that's based on is a pipeline calculator that we developed with the client and to determine what the potential deal size was on one of our qualified appointments. And we've actually confirmed that our initial pipeline comes within about 80% of the actual number based on about 2 years of data. So we're kind of right on our deal. So and if you say the average deal size, if you look at it that way, you're kind of in the ROI. You're in a nice, you're starting to get into a sweet spot with a 34K average deal size here. So it's a little bit, more where we need above the 15K really to start making sense. So that initial, to net it out really, the initial marketing to pipeline ratio is about 1 to 43. Now, obviously, not all these are going to close. Even if you said, 50% close rate, if you're being somewhat generous, you're at a 1 to 20 marketing to close rate there. And so, but that's how really they track, the manufacturers today track on something, where the average sales cycle is 6 to 12 months in many of these deals. So I'm going to give you another example here of how we actually close the loop. This one, we close the loop with the prospect. And what we found is just calling the partner does not work. Because traditionally, if we call the partner up, we either are ending up talking to the marketing person who is managing the entire campaign and has to herd about 10 salespeople, for example, to get all their feedback. And you know how salespeople are. They are going to sandbag. They are not going to tell you, oh, yeah, this was a great opportunity and I got a $500,000 quote on the table. Because if that thing doesn't happen, especially in the early stages, they look silly. And probably another reason is it probably would jinx them as well if they had to say it too early. And that's how I am anyways. So what this does is, we close the loop with the prospect in this scenario. Well, we'll send them a survey, and we'll send out the survey to the prospect, and we'll do this to get their feedback. And, okay, this one was for Cisco, for example. Oh, how knowledgeable was the Cisco partner about the Cisco solutions you were interested in? So we rate them on a scale of 1 to 10. So we're also trying to get that feedback on them. In addition to, we're trying to get what happened with the appointment. So we have what statement best describes what you did as a result of this appointment. So some of the choices are, yes, I purchased Cisco products and services. Oh, I decided to go with another brand other than Cisco. So you can see we're getting this feedback from the end user. And we only do this, just as a note, when it's 100% funded. Well, we would do this in that case. Another way is the more traditional, where you reach out to the partner and you say, Force 3, you went on this appointment. What happened with it? And so what they did originally, this was really funny because what they did is we did exactly that. And after they went on the appointment, they said, hey, eCoast, it was an all right appointment. We found we actually, we're going to close an ASA security deal. And it was about, I don't know, I think the security deal was 5 or 10K. So the return on investment wasn't there. But Force 3, we talked to them about 2 months later, and they said, hey, that lead you sent over, you know what? We actually had a great meeting with that person. We had a follow-up meeting with that person. We met their entire people who make decisions over there in this process, and they really like us, and there's much more opportunity in there. And actually, 3 months later, they told us we ended up closing, over $500,000 worth of business out of this client. So you can see the ROI sometimes is a little bit elusive, especially initially after the campaign's over, and it does take some time to transpire. So it's a complex solution, but it does work. It can happen, and this is one where we just get really excited about these opportunities when when it happens. So having said that, I think, Laz, this is going to wrap up the presentation. Do you have any final thoughts before we thank everyone for attending the webinar?
No, Will, you guys are doing a great job out there. So with these real-life examples, we like to talk about best practices, but these are real-world practices. So I think this gave your viewers a real good chance to not just see what they should be doing, but to see what some of their peers in the industry are doing based on the services that you offer them. So, kudos to you guys.
Great, thanks, Laz. And thanks, everyone, for viewing the webinar. And if you do have any questions, the follow-up material is right there. And thanks again to Laz for jumping on and doing this for us and Sirius Decisions.
All right, take care.
Okay, well, no, thanks. Bye.